Said this is the Real Family Therapy Podcast. It's me, DJ Double OG. We got my brother, Are You Serious, in the building. And we got Dad in the building. How you fellas doing?
Doing well.
Doing well. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So it is episode 7. Last week we went over love. We got into Valentine's Day. Some of our favorite stories. Actually, that was probably one of my favorite episodes so far. Make sure you go online and check it out if you want to hear the podcast. Real Family Therapy Podcast is available everywhere online, or you can watch us on YouTube at Real Family Therapy Podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Episode 6 is now available, but we're live on episode 7. Our radio fans get to catch it live. Everybody else should catch the replay. We'll post probably Thursday afternoon. It'll be posted up. Make sure you follow us online, Real FT Podcast. So, fellas, let's just jump right into it today. I wanted to get into a little current event, talk about some of the things that's happened this last week, and move on. Something, since we're doing a podcast, I thought this was very interesting. The little tidbit that I learned this week: Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen have hooked up to do a podcast together. Did you guys know that, or have you heard it?
No, I did not know about that random connection.
Random. Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen. The name of their podcast is Renegades Born in the USA. It's going to be a podcast where Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen sit down and have discussions on, I guess, current events, different topics, man. That's
So basically, everybody's going to be waiting for Obama to talk.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Bruce, enough. What you got to say, man?
Yeah, Bruce Springsteen is to represent the white people.
Maybe that's why. They had to have the All-American. He is the All-American guy, right? Bruce Springsteen. So maybe they wanted to represent Bruce, and that was random.
Shout out to him, I guess.
That was random.
I ain't no hater.
Speaking of white people, right? When you say Bruce Springsteen, Coca-Cola got slammed for their diversity training this week that urged their workers to be less white. Have you guys heard about this?
Wait, what?
Yes. Have you heard about this, Dan?
Did it really say less white?
Exactly what it said is less white. So Coca-Cola.
Did they have a training program for that?
Yes, and it's been taken down from LinkedIn. Taken down from LinkedIn. But yeah, Coca-Cola had a diversity training program, an online diversity training program where they were trying to teach diversity, right?
What did they do? Make everybody sit down and watch Hollywood Shuffle or something?
I don't know. No,
yeah, Hollywood
that would have been a good training program.
No, they got to watch Cooley High.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Shout out to
watch Cooley High.
Shout out to Coach Cheese. That's my favorite movie.
Cooley High didn't have no white people in it, though.
Exactly.
Not at all.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, but it's called Confronting Racism. It was a course offered by LinkedIn Education, allegedly utilized by Coca-Cola. So it's a course on LinkedIn, but Coca-Cola used it to teach diversity in their program in the USA and in other Western nations that are owned by Coca-Cola. So it literally says verbatim, the slide suggests that you try to be less white with tips including be less oppressive, listen, believe, and break with white solidarity. Those were the tips to be less white.
You can say all of those things without just saying be less white, but then again, I guess. But I mean, like to avoid PR situations, they could have just literally left out be less white and they would have been fine.
Yeah, it literally, okay. And this was a required course. So I'm going to tell you the literal breakdown. I got a picture of the slide. It said to be less white is to be less oppressive, be less arrogant, be less certain, be less defensive, be less ignorant, be more humble, listen, believe, break with apathy, and break with white solidarity. Those are the ways to be less white.
Sound like Christians.
Oh, no,
well, yo, like Ayo, it's funny because like internationally, like Americans, specifically more white people, they're like the only people that would go to another country and then expect you to speak that language. To speak English. So like you got people that are going to Mexico but are mad that people aren't speaking English.
I would be.
Like there was this thing I saw where this dude was telling his story about working in Mexico at a resort. And the lady was mad that the dude didn't speak English very well in Mexico. And Mexico actually has an official language called Spanish.
Spanish, right.
Unlike America that doesn't have an official language. So that's, so I mean, once again, they could have said that without saying be less white, because that is messed up. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Got to be fair. Because if they had a class talking about be less black, which they don't need because we all know how to switch code when we get to work. Well, hey, how you doing?
Hold on, black people teach that be less black class to other black people all the time.
And then I said ketchup.
Of course.
Well, that's the regular talk we get. Be less black.
Yeah, we teach each other to be less black every day.
We switching codes on the daily.
Yeah,
we about to get on the call now.
You have to learn immediately how to be less black in the suburb. You have to learn immediately.
Who was that? Chris Rock? I forgot who it was. He was like, "You do know your black coworker is not like that at home, right?"
Right.
Jim ain't like that at home.
Right.
Jim is not like that. You think you know Jim? You have no clue.
Hey, that's how it be when you go to work too. You gotta act like, "Hey, how you doing?" All right.
Man, you want to go out? I don't be doing.
You want to go out for drinks later on?
Listen, I would go to work with a do-rag on purpose, so they knew I wasn't one of them coons that they can just play around with.
You don't want to do that. Yeah.
Huh? I'd be in a corporate office with with a do-rag on and Tim's.
Well, we got to send a message to all of our listeners out here. The key word today is be less. Be less.
Be less.
Be less.
Be less. Be less white. Goodness.
Be less. Yes. Be less white.
How you gonna be dumb? Like you could like they don't even know how to do it for themselves. Why do we expect them to do it for us? Like they don't even know how to be like they can't. I don't even know the word I'm trying to find to use, but they don't even know how to be respectful or even decent towards themselves, let alone other people talking about be less white. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's
Cut
crazy.
it out.
Crazy. Be less white. Okay, let's get into something else, man. In Illinois, right, the governor, J.B. Pritzker, just signed a sweeping criminal justice overhaul bill, which will effectively change the criminal justice system in Illinois. And as we all know, Illinois usually, for some reason, out of all the states, Illinois is always first when it comes to affecting change for Black people. But Illinois is going to end cash bail starting in 2023 as the first thing. And a lot of people are like, what's cash bail? Because when I read it, I'm like, what is cash bail? But cash bail requires people to stay in jail for crimes if they can't afford it. So what they're going to do now is allow the judge a little more leniency. So whereas everybody gets a minimum cash bail now, for certain crimes, people won't have to pay bail in order to be released on their own recognizance, right? So I don't know how much, I don't get into the details of how much per crime, but like basically if you do something and your bail is $750, instead of having a $750 bail and sitting in jail because you don't have $750, which a lot of people surprisingly don't have $750 laying around in the middle of the month. So you won't go to jail. But if you can afford bail and you commit a crime, the judge can also deny your bail because of the crime that you committed, not just the fact that you can afford to pay bail on a crime. So if your bail is $500,000 and you got $500,000, you can pay bail and get out. Well, the judge can deny your bail, period.
So
That's
what's the
just one of the
difference?
things.
It's
I was
all
gonna
still
ask
based on somebody's judgment.
Yeah, but it's not a requirement. Now that's the bad thing because it is more based on the judge's discretion.
Okay, so
But,
once again, I'm just asking because I don't know. Some people don't know how to say that they don't know. So I don't know. So I'm asking, so like there are certain situations where there's a bail required, because I didn't think that every case, I thought it was already on the judge's discretion if it was a bail or not. That's like the judge sets bail and the judge can be like, there is no bail, I'll release you on your own recognizance. But there are some situations where no matter what, there has to be a bail. And is there a certain money amount associated with the bail?
So a lot of that has to do with your criminal record. So I can tell you about Minnesota for sure. I don't know about Illinois. In Minnesota, if you've never committed a crime before and the crime that you committed, they don't feel that you're a danger to yourself or your community, they can release you on your own recognizance, right? So you don't have to pay a bill. You just get released, come back to court if they think you're going to come back to court. If you have a criminal record, then no matter what your crime is, you're automatically attached to a bail if you have a criminal record.
So is there an amount? So the amount, I guess, is what my question is. Can a judge say your bail is $1?
The amount is connected to, so your amount of bail is connected to the crime, and your amount of bail is connected to what the judge is the judge's discretion. So the biggest difference is there's a limit on the floor and there's a limit on the ceiling. And what this law is doing is taking away the floor. So now there's no floor. So there's a possibility for more people not to have to pay bail in order to get out of jail. Versus right now, if you committed a crime before, you automatically have a bail set for you.
Okay. So like no matter what, so I'm just literally trying to make sure I get the base of it. So no matter what, for example, if I have a record, it has to be $500 or above. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand that there's a bail, but the judge could be like, all right, your bail is $1. Like, can he say your bail is $1? Because if that's the case, then these judges had that ability the entire time.
No, because there's a floor.
Okay, so and that's what I was wanting to make sure. I'm just saying it for clarification for everybody. Yeah.
Right. He can't say it's $1. It has to be $500, $750. Most of the jail bails, $1,000 to $3,000 is the majority of the bills. $1,000 or $3,000. Then it depends on your crime. Honestly, Damien just got bailed out for $220,000. And they went right back to jail. But so I done seen, it just depends on, you know what I'm saying, your crime. But more than anything, it depends on your criminal history.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that's not the only, I just kicked the camera. That's not the only thing that that the crime bill did. It's like 700 pages. I didn't want to go through it all. The main thing though is cash bail. They're also
I believe we rejected that here because that was on the ballot and we rejected it here.
In California?
Yeah.
But the problem with it to me is it's still all based on discretion on somebody's judgment.
Yeah.
The judge can decide whether you bailed out or not.
True.
Which is a good or a bad thing. And that's why we got to make sure the judges are non-biased and
see, the thing is we have to take it out of a judge's discretion. Either it is or it ain't.
Well, that could be a twist. That could be bad too, though. Because there could be a situation where there needs to be discretion because there's a lot of situations that are in the gray. So, for example, if a police officer arrests somebody falsely and then they're charged with a crime that's false or not just, and because they're arrested not justly, now they have a bail no matter what. So there is no for leniency, there is no anything. So the judge can be like, all right, well, this doesn't sound right, or he doesn't seem that bad, or whatever the case may be. So that's why I said it's really on the human factor, and that's what you're trying to say. It's like it's based off of that person. But I do think they need to be able to have that leniency because it can be good or bad, and that's the problem. Mostly it goes bad because most people in power abuse their authority.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the way it is now. So what's the difference? I mean, floor, ceiling, no floor, no ceiling. it's still a judgment call.
And that's why we have to be more active when we vote.
As soon as you walk into the courtroom, you're going to be judged before anybody say anything, before any lawyers step up and start talking. As soon as you walk into that courtroom, judgment starts.
All right. So a lot of judges are appointed.
Whether you have a jury or just a judge, judgment starts when you walk into that courtroom. Based on the judge's past experiences, present experiences, or whatever, it's still going to be a judgment. And that doesn't matter whether the judge is white, black, blue, green. He's going to have his own set of judgments, which he's not supposed to have in the first place. It's supposed to be totally based on what's in the law. But, you know, they have judgments. They look at you and they say, well, you look like, you know, or you sound like, or you ain't, but yes, based on judgment. So that's the problem. You know, who's the judges? Where are they getting these judges from? How much training did these judges get? Because I've seen a lot of these court cases where a lot of judges is going to jail after court.
That's true. That's true.
You know, judges ain't no better than anybody else. They just a human being just like everybody else. Could have a bad day, could wake up, you know, because he didn't have sex that morning. Now he mad at everybody, you know, so if you go to court that day, depending on how you walked in, you might go to jail.
I think I learned a lot too this year during the election cycle about judges, because when I went to vote, when you go to that second page and you see the list of judges that are running for office, you see nobody running against them. It's like the same person's in charge for years. Like this person literally is the only name on the ballot. And how many years has this name been the only name on this ballot? You know what I'm saying? So when I vote for a judge, I don't have control over the judges, even if I'm voting, because there's only one person to vote for. So I think maybe that's something that maybe we should really push as a culture, is to find more people to run for those positions, especially being a judge. Because in this law in Illinois, what it's really doing is what you said there. It's just giving the judge more discretion. It's giving the judge more power. It's not giving the defendant more power. It's giving the defendant more hope, maybe. But it's really just giving the judge more power over every case. So
yeah, and I had this conversation before, and I was like, we need to stop telling kids to be lawyers. Like you wouldn't tell somebody, yo, I want you one day to go out, play basketball, and you can be a starter in the G League. Like you want to be the judge. You don't want to just be the lawyer. Like the lawyer's cool. Don't get me wrong, but the judge is the one that really makes the decisions, that really calls the shots, that really has the power. So instead of just telling people like, yo, you should be a lawyer or a doctor, tell them you want to be a judge or a specialist, because the specialist is where they get the money. And the lawyer and the judge is who makes the real decisions. The specialist is the one that can save your life for real. And the judge is the one that can save your life for real. So I think we need to tweak it a little bit even more and push more towards being a judge and a specialist in a certain area, because you can go to the doctor and the doctor do what? Let me refer you to a specialist. And that's exactly what happens. They don't just say, you go to the doctor and they say, well, go to this person because they know more than me. They know what they're talking about. So in the same way with the judges, like I had that conversation before, like we got to push it even further and stop telling kids to just stop at a lawyer. We need to say judges. We need to say Congress, Senate. We need to say certain other aspects of the actual creation of the jobs and the final decision, because you can't tell a judge nothing after the judge says, hits that gavel.
And then again, what are the qualifications for being a judge? Yep. I don't think nobody knows, because if it's an elected, if you're elected, then you don't really have to have qualifications. You could be elected just because you were popular.
Yeah.
You know,
just because your name on that.
Because Alan Page was a Supreme Court judge after he played football. He didn't
did he go to school?
He went to school for law, but he didn't. Yeah. He never was in a courtroom judging, defending cases or prosecuting. He went straight to judging based on his popularity. So, what are the qualifications?
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, that's them. No, go ahead, Dad.
So it's based on, what are the qualifications? You don't know. I don't know what the qualifications are, to tell you the truth. So I don't need to look that up. But I know that Alan Page didn't have years of court experience. I know that for sure. Because right after he retired, next thing I know, he was a judge. And then next thing I know, he was a Supreme Court judge. He was a head judge of the state of Minnesota for a while. And so I don't know why they...
And we know they're elected. We know they're elected.
So they're just, people vote. They look at that name, say, hey, I know that name. Click.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that goes, what I was going to say is that goes into what Pops always, he buried it into me. Is like, what does that have to do with me? Like, just because someone else and a lot of other people had to do a certain thing to get a certain place, that doesn't mean anything to you. Like, even with my current job director, at my job, they've been telling people you have to have a certain degree, you have to have a bachelor's degree at least to become a director. My current director that just got hired was like, yeah, I just want to give you guys some inspiration and let you guys know, I personally don't even have a degree. And everybody is like, what? Hold on. They've been telling us that we needed a degree a whole time to become a director, and you just have your high school diploma and you're the director, which is, I'm talking about money. At least $300 a year. Like, and they only got a high school diploma. Now, and that's why I always live by what Pops told me is like, yo, that has nothing to do with me. I'm glad that you did this and went to school for 10 years and you did this and you did that. I'm gonna get there the same way, but quicker. I'm gonna get there, but quicker.
Yeah.
Everybody I work with is in their 50s.
There's no qualifications for being a judge. You can be a judge, Just get your name on a ballot. That's all you have to do. The next thing you know is, look at, now he got a TV show. What's his name? You said that Judge, what is his name?
Joe Brown?
No. He had the show he had the TV show with all the people acting crazy and women doing this. Huh?
Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer. He's a judge.
Yeah. But he was a judge in real life.
When?
Before he came.
That ain't true! That's not true! So get your facts straight.
I don't know the story, so I can't tell you.
Yeah, so he used to be the judge.
That ain't true! That's not true! So get your facts straight.
He's about 89.
Yeah,
he's got to be old because he was doing this TV show for years and years.
Yeah, that's why he went back to doing. That's why he's doing a judge show now, because he used to be a judge.
That ain't true. That's not true.
Let's get into Black History. In fact, it is Black History Month. Are you serious? You posted something online which made me look it up, and we're talking about judges here. And I want to give a little love to two people today. I want to give a little love to Vel Phillips, and then I know you want to talk about Fritz Pollard. So I want to give a little love to Vel Phillips here for Black History Month. Valea Hortense Rogers Phillips. She was born on February 18th, 1923, and she passed away April 17th, 2018. A little bit about her. She was an American attorney, politician, jurist, and civil rights activist. She served as the alderperson and judge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and as Secretary of State of Wisconsin from 1979 to 1983. She's often was the first woman and or African-American in her position. She was the first African-American woman to graduate from the University of Wisconsin Law School. She was the first African-American as well as the first woman elected alderman to the Milwaukee County Council, and the first African-American as well as the first woman to serve as a jurist in Wisconsin. She was born in Wisconsin. She graduated from Howard University first, where she received a Bachelor of Arts degree. Then she went to Wisconsin Law School, becoming the first Black woman to graduate from that school. And that's where she met her longtime husband, Vel Phillips, and they became the first husband and wife couple to be admitted to the Wisconsin bar. And they was also the first Black African-American couple to be admitted to the Wisconsin bar. So we want to give a little love to Vel Phillips, a pioneer in Black history, one of the first in the state of Wisconsin. And we all know how undiverse Wisconsin is. Dad, let's hear a little bit about Fritz Pollard.
Fritz Pollard was actually the first African-American to play on the NFL. The NFL started in 1920, and he was the first Black man on the team back then in 1920, 100 years ago. So to give you an idea of how this was, in 1920, there was 59 Black people hung that year in public streets. So that's how diverse this team was for him. I mean, he was being attacked. Not only he was being threatened off the field, but he was worried about his life on the field. He had to develop a way to be tackled. When they tackled him, what he would do is he would immediately turn on his back and start kicking his feet. You know, like he was riding a bike or something, so that if somebody tried to jump on him, they'd get spiked. Because he knew as soon as he hit the ground, they were going to try to hurt him. You know, so he was, you know, this was 1920. And now to give you a perspective of that, after this, you know, after the 1920s, they stopped having Black people. The next first Black person in the NFL wasn't until 1969. So that's the official, you know, what we hear of the first Black person to play in the NFL was in 1969. No. It was in 1920. In 1921, he became the head coach of the team, of his own team. So back then, you were not only players, but you were the coaches too. So the coaches were on the team playing as well as, you know, playing the game. So he was a player and the head coach in 1921 to become the first Black coach on the professional football team. So this team went to the World Championship and they won in 1920. That's the picture I got in the background of the World Champs. And him sitting on the first front row in the corner. That's Fritz Pollard. Now, the first Black coach after him didn't come along till 1989. So that's, you know, that's a long time between 1920 and 1989, between the first Black coach. So most people didn't even know until recently. Now he's starting to get some popularity and the people are starting to hear because, you know, because all people heard before was, you know, the first Black coach was Art Shell, you know, of Oakland. He was the first Black coach of the NFL that everybody knows about. But he even said, no, I'm the second. He said the first Black coach was Fritz Pollard. And to give you, you know, the idea, this is how racist these NFL teams was. The Washington Redskins didn't get a Black person on their team until 1969. So, you know, they were the last NFL team to have a Black person play was the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
So Fritz Pollard did something back then that was, you can't imagine what he was going through. You know, people, they hated everything about him when he got on the team. Only people that didn't hate him was his teammates. And another thing, he was making $1,500 per game in 1920.
That's
One
a
of
lot
the top paying, the only athlete that was making more money as much as him was Jim Thorpe. He was another minority that was playing him. So those two were the highest paid athletes back then, making $1,500 per game. And so, you know, that was big. That was big back then. But it just kind of went, that shows how far backwards we've come. Because we went from having a coach in 1921 to this is 2021, almost over 100 years later, and we're still struggling to get general managers as Black general managers in the NFL. You know, we got some coaches now, we got players. I mean, the majority of the NFL is Black now. You know, there's more black players than there is white players in the NFL. But you have no black owners. You have no black general managers. I don't know of any or few general managers. So we haven't really gotten all that far, although there's making more money than ever before. But, you know, when you look at what Jackie Robinson went through, that's been televised, what he had to go through as a black player in the baseball in the 1940s and 50s. This was 30 years before that. You know, could you imagine black people couldn't do anything, but you could walk down the street without fear of being hung.
Yeah, he had to have, literally, he had to have probably one of his white teammates with him at all times. Just so
his white teammates hated him.
He had to have somebody to protect him because they'd have killed him at any
point. He hired bodyguards.
Oh, okay.
He had to hire bodyguards for himself. But when he got off, but his problem was not only on the field, it was off the field and on the field. So they was trying to kill him on the field. You know, they were hearing gunshots and everybody thought that he was dead because they knew that if somebody got shot out there on that field, it was going to be him. You know, so he just now is being recognized as, you know, one of the great barrier breakers. But, you know, I just looked at it as, I'm like, wow, 1920, 1921, you know, I couldn't imagine what some of the things he had to go through. Plus, he was making money, good money, making more money than half the white players on the team. They probably hated him just for that, just because he was making more money than them. You know how oppressive white people are when it comes to their money. So I just thought he should get a shout out for just being, you know, he lived through it.
Yeah.
You know? That's a vibe, man. He lived a long time. He didn't pass away till 1989. So the same year that we got the first black head coach, Arshell, is the same year that he passed away. That's ironic. Yeah, thank you, Dad. Fritz Pollard, one of the Black heroes, Black History Month fact, from the Real Family Therapy Podcast. And we also live on 94.1 FM WFNU LP St. Paul. Are you serious? Last week, he brought something up and it was on my mind, and I read that disclaimer and I totally just forgot all about what I was going to say. So let's talk about something else, man. Let's talk about NASA and the moon landing. So
moon landing.
The Mars. Landing, I'm sorry. NASA's Mars Perseverance rover beams back first sounds ever recorded on another planet. A lot of the noise came back and it was just engine noise and wind. Now, just the fact that we have cameras on Mars is amazing. Are you serious? What do you think we'll find when we get to Mars?
Nothing. I mean, I don't want to say nothing. So I think that they'll find a lot of historical information on what was there, opposed to what is there now. So its exploration is based off of what was there and to find out what happened, I guess, more or less, because everything is just guessing until they can actually get some information, some actual tangible information. So personally, I think they'll try to find where water was on there, if there was water, where life was, if there was life, different type of things that have been left behind. But I mean, that's really, and then to see how accurate they were with what they always believed was there, I guess. Their theories on Mars and if we can live there and stuff like that. But I think that's really about it. I don't think anything crazy is going to be found. I don't think there's going to be any structures or anything like that, or anything crazy like that. But we'll see. You just never know.
Right. What if they just ran up for the whole city? Dad, Mars. People on Mars driving cars. What do you think? What do you think they're going to find on Mars?
They ain't going to find no food stamps. I'll tell you that.
Why would they look for food stamps?
I don't know. I really don't care, to tell you the truth.
You don't know what they're gonna find on
What do I
Mars.
care about? I mean, Mars. What about down in Detroit, down on 75th Street? What they find out down there? I don't know. There's too many things going on right here for me to be worried about what they're gonna find out there on Mars.
Well,
I could care less.
Let me ask you this then, right? Because this is what made me even bring it up, coming from a biblical standpoint, right? Nothing in the Bible talks about any other planets, right? So, do you feel like we should be going to other planets looking for other life?
I don't think the Bible was created to dissect the universe. I think it was there to help us provide. So when people talk about it's not in the Bible, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or it isn't something that was meant. I just think that that wasn't the focus at the moment. I mean, we had a lot of issues here alone, so we need to focus on us first before we start thinking about something else out there.
That's my philosophy.
So I don't think when people be like, it wasn't in the Bible, well, then there's a lot of, cell phones weren't in the Bible, but we got them, don't we? So, I mean, we can't, the Bible is based off, I think from my interpretation, the Bible is based off a lot of stories to help us understand and to help us go forward and to help us with our beliefs and to help us become better people. And I think a lot of times that we use the Bible to bring people down opposed to lift them up, which is what the Bible was for me, based off of love, obviously. So I think the Bible was created based off of love, but people use the Bible as a weapon to tell people what they should and shouldn't do, opposed to how we can make each other better and love each other. So that's just my opinion.
The Bible is just an instruction manual.
Yeah.
Instruction manual on how to live in this world system that we're born into. So that don't have nothing to do with, it mentions he made the universe, which includes Mars and all those other planets out there in universes, but he wasn't concerned about that. He was concerned about you trying to live right where you're at. Why would he, that wasn't his concern. He sent Jesus down here to give us a life and to teach us how to live on this earth with this earth system and all of its flaws. And so let me ask you this. Survive.
Let me ask you this last question on extraterrestrial life. Do you believe there is intelligent life outside of Earth?
I'm still trying to find intelligent life on the Earth. So we got to find the intelligent life here first. I don't care what's out there. As long as it don't come to my house, there could be anything out there. There's everything out there. We don't know what's out there. We don't even know what's on the Earth. We got an ocean out there that hasn't been explored yet.
The ocean. I was just about to say that.
So what are we talking about going up in the sky for when we can have something in the ocean that might help us survive this Earth? But we ain't worried about that too much. We're trying to go up into the skies. I think it's a waste of time. They only did it. The only reason we did it in the first place was to beat Russia to get there. That was the only reason NASA was developed, because Russia was going to get there before we were.
Yeah, so people don't realize.
Big deal.
People's only been on the moon one time. Like I don't know if anybody even realizes that they've never been back to the moon. Ever.
Let me double check.
And walked on the moon. Think about it. How many moon landings have there been? You can look it up while you say it.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now. In total, 12 people have walked on the moon besides Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. So
when's the last time somebody walked on the moon?
I don't know. Let me double check.
It was like 6 of them.
They're trying to make commercial flights to the moon right now and make some money off of it.
Oh, the dude
December 1972.
Okay, so we haven't been to the moon since 72 in 2021. All right.
But like I said, I'm more concerned with what's in the ocean than I am with what's up on the Mars.
I think there's aliens. I think there's other life forms out there, because when we see aliens, that takes people to a different place. But are there other life forms? Yes. I don't think people can really comprehend space and infinity, and every star has like 5 to 10 planets around it. and the amount of actual things out there in space outside of us being narcissistic. So for me to think that there's nothing out there, but there's so many stars and there's so many planets, and there's just, I mean, I
don't think there's nothing. There's something out. I mean, when I look at this, I look at the guy like this. He tried something here. He's like, man, nah, that don't look right. So let's see. I'll try this one over here. Nah, that one didn't look. That don't work. So then we came to Earth after about 6 or 7 tries. But in the meantime, we got all these other planets out there with leftovers and stuff that didn't work. So that was out there long before we got in.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
The whole world has got to be older than the Earth. I mean, we're the 3rd planet from the sun. That's about it.
That's entirely possible, man. Okay.
So, but I'm not concerned about that. That's not going to help me pay my rent next month. So I ain't worried about it.
Okay. Let's get into a story that I've seen in Oakley Union School District, right? Which is out there by you. Are you serious? Have you heard about the Oakley Union School District east of San Francisco?
No.
It serves about 5,000 students. So the Oakley Union School District had a school board meeting, right, on Zoom. And the board members of the Oakley Union Elementary District openly bashed parents and made inappropriate comments, believing the meeting was not yet open to the public. So you know how when we start our Zoom meeting, if you start a Zoom meeting early and then you set the settings to allow people to enter the meeting early, or you can allow them to only be able to enter at a certain amount of time, right? So if the meeting's scheduled for 12, you can say nobody can get in until 12. Well, they thought that nobody could get into the meeting until 12, but they didn't set it like that. So people got into the meeting early. What they heard was somebody on the board saying, "Are we alone?" One more board member asked, and then Kim B is the board member that asked that. And she said, "B word, if you're going to call me out, I'm going to F you up," is what she was saying to the parents. So I guess the parents were asking, when is school going to open back up, right? When are we going to do in-person school? We need it. And school board was, caught on camera on the Zoom meeting talking crazy. They was like,
I heard about that situation, man.
Okay, they forgot there's real people on the other side of these letters that they're writing, and it's really unfortunate they want to pick on us because they want their babysitters back. Another school board member said the only reason why these parents want their kids back to school is so they can smoke weed in the living room while the kids is gone. They lazy, they crazy, they sending threats. We gonna run them, beat them up. So the school board in Oakley County was called on Zoom saying all this stuff. Somebody recorded it, sent it anonymously to the newspaper, and the newspaper blew it up. Everybody on the school board resigned. All the members of the school board resigned. So now they heard about that whole new election. So when I read the story, it just made me think about school. My son, their first week back was last week. Everybody back in school. It's a real big thing, but if you're on the school board, you can't be talking crazy. Like, you could fight these people who want their babysitter. They talk about babysitting, which made me think about last week, right? So last week I talked about that on episode 6, how, if you're a single at-home mother who works full-time, you work 2 jobs, sometimes it's going to be hard for you to find somebody to watch your children while they're at home, and you working 2 jobs, and you're a single parent. I mean, who's gonna watch the baby? So I just think it was a bad taste for the San Francisco School Board in Oakley to bash parents who really just trying to survive through the whole thing.
Well, the whole problem is that we don't have a government that's willing to back up what they say. Well, we need to shut everything down so we can stop this contamination of this virus. Oh yeah, but we ain't gonna pay nobody so they can stay home. Well, if they paid these parents so that they could afford to stay home, and not expose their kids and everybody else in the world to this virus, then we wouldn't have this issue. The issue is that the government don't want to back it up and say, okay, I want y'all to stay home, and to help you out, we're going to pay to make sure that you don't lose any money while you're doing it. You're still able to pay your rent, you're still able to do this, but stay home. See, that's the difference between the United States and other countries. Other countries shut down, but they also made provision for the people to be able to stay home. You know, but we don't. We want to have our cake and eat it too. We want you to stay home, but we don't want to pay for it. You know, hey, you got to figure that out on your own. And so, of course, what's going to happen? No, I got to go back to work then. You know, I need to get to work. If I need to get to work, my kids need to go to school so I can go to work. So it's all about chasing money, you know, but it could have been resolved if they'd have put the money in at the front end instead of waiting to the back end to decide, okay, now we need to back end some of this money. No, if they'd have put the money up at the front end, made a decision to say, okay, we're going to put a stop to this virus. We're going to shut everything down. And if you need help, we're going to support these people so that they can stay home and stop spreading this virus around. But they did not do that. They just said, you need to stay home. You need to stop doing this. We need to shut everything down, but we ain't going to pay you for it. You got to make it on your own.
But that's the American way.
Yeah, so that's the difference. See, because this is a capitalist society, capitalism and democracy don't work. You know, capitalism and democracy are at ends with each other. Capitalism says, let the system take care of itself. Let the economy take care of itself. Let the market take care of itself. And if you just let it work by itself, it'll work its way out. Where democracy says, yeah, but we need to make sure that everybody's taken care of. We need to make sure that this is taken care of and that's taken care of. Well, then which one are you going to do? You can't have both. So, you know, it's a capitalist society trying to run a democratic country. And that's what's wrong with this country today, where we're schizophrenic.
Hey, I seen Judas and the Black Messiah, Reggie. You said something about that last week. And it made me watch Judas and the Black Messiah. And so he said something in that movie that stood out to me, which is talking about what we talk about right now. He said the only way to fight capitalism is with socialism. And it just when he said it, it really made me think about the society we live in. And it's true, it's about $1. It's not really about the people as much as it is about the ones that's on top controlling what they control or keeping control of whatever it is, various things that they control. Because socialism is a bad word in America, but the idea of socialism isn't necessarily bad. So what made socialism such a bad word where they want to kill all of these people? You know what I'm saying?
I got you. Capitalists made socialism a bad word because it defeats capitalism.
Yeah.
So, for example, Dad has always talked about it, and I always say it as well. The American dream is the worst thing that ever happened to people. The worst thing that ever happened. So what happens is that people tend to do things against their own well-being for that one glimmer of shine to be like, well, when I get there, I can do all of this and I can have this and I can do that. So let me protect the 1%. Because one day I could be the 1% and then I can be getting all these benefits. And it's always weird to me when people discuss owning your own business, for example, right? So everybody says own your own business, own your own business, own your own business. You can't do that in a capitalistic world. Like that doesn't even make sense. The only way that America stays the way it is if the majority of the people are suffering, if the majority of the people are down. So you talk about everybody should get a business and be a multi-millionaire and have okay, who's going to work for you then? You can't distribute millions and millions of products and you can't do millions and millions of things as everybody their own boss. That doesn't work. You need somebody that does the actual hand-to-hand customer service. You need somebody to conduct the call centers. You need somebody to do this. You need somebody to clean up. You need all of these things. So for people to sit there and tell everyone to get a business and to be an owner, it's stupid. Like it really is, and it's annoying. Like it's the most, it's annoying. Like we have to understand that this, like the way that things are set up, where they are made for people to be employees, and there's nothing wrong with that. But stop lying to people and telling them that everybody should have their own business. Well, I can't work no 9 to 5. I got to do my own thing, and you couldn't do your own thing if you didn't have people working a 9 to 5 under you. Or not even a traditional 9 to 5, like regardless of the hours, because that's stupid in itself. Like when you sleep, I'm working. Well, when you sleep, I'm working. So what's the difference? Like I don't understand it. Like you can work all night, but you got to go to sleep eventually. And when you sleeping, guess what I'm doing? I'm working. So that's a whole nother.
What are you saying? Yeah.
People just be, once again, I am a firm believer. People just like to say things like. It just is what it is. But I mean, the whole aspect of social, like, we need to make sure that we understand that, like Dad said, that capitalism and socialism collide. I mean, capitalism and democracy collide together, because it's not about making sure that people are okay. Unless you're rich, you have to protect the rich. So we can have all these $1 trillion and $1 billion bailouts for these companies and corporations, but then we get, hey, we can't give people handouts. Like, and it doesn't make sense. Everybody literally gets handouts. If you called 911 at any point in time, that's a handout. If you're like, I don't understand people's concept, because they just say things like you should get your own and stop doing this. No, the only reason you're able to do it your own is because somebody else was able to make sure that you were able to do it on your own, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of situations in which people don't understand. For example, when they say that I was able to pay for my own college, so why weren't you? Did you have to help your family pay bills? Did you have to get a job to make sure that your little brother and your parents could help? Right? Like, people are so beyond stupid when they say certain things about, capitalism and socialism and what socialism is. Every aspect from the library is a socialistic policy. Like when people say welfare, like we talked about before, they don't understand what welfare is. They just assume someone's sitting on their couch getting fat, eating lobster off of some hardworking person's back that's been working. Like that's not even the case. Most hardworking jobs are for illegal immigrants, fools. I don't work hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. I sit here. Where I'm sitting right now is where my desk is and where I work every single day. You looking at it. I'm literally at my desk right now. I'm at work. I'm not working hard. I'm not in no field. I'm not producing anything. I'm working in a factory. I'm not doing any of those type of jobs, but yet those jobs are the ones that don't pay. And then when you talk about this whole minimum wage thing, that's a whole nother issue. It's like people are okay with paying someone $7.25 an hour, and they think that's good. Like they're okay with that morally. And that's a problem for me. Like, that's a problem. Like for you to, and the only reason why is because of the capitalistic predator and the capitalistic pyramid. I need to make a lot more money, which means I need to pay you as little as possible. Even me getting my job, I have to negotiate my pay. Hey, well, we don't do this. Well, you can do this. Well, we don't want to pay you this. Well, you can pay me this. Well, we don't pay for travel. Well, you can pay me a signing bonus. And I guess like they try to make sure that in this world, like you get the least for the most work. Like that's your job. Any job that you've ever been at is to pay you the least and get the most out of you. That's their goal. And in this capitalistic world, I know I'm doing my little soapbox, but it's just bad, man. And there needs to be a system based off of all these Christians, because they say America isn't a Christian state. Obviously, there's no official religion here, but a lot of these things are based off of Christianity. And if they say this, but yet they don't want to give people universal, like we have Republicans that are saying they're so Christian, but then they're extremely against universal health care. Like those two things don't go together. Like, how can you be so Christian, but then you don't want to give people free health care and free shelter? Yet you go to church every Sunday and you donate and you give your tithes and your offering to give to charities to give people free health care and free living, free housing and free food. You do shelters, you do this and that. So those things don't go together. Like, which one is it? Like, I shouldn't have to worry about a place to live, things to eat, and making sure that I'm healthy. And it's just sad. And I'll leave it at that.
That's all confusing. You gotta, I mean, capitalism, that's here. It ain't going nowhere. There's too many rich people, too much money being made. Yeah. And so the whole, like I said, the whole American dream is based on capitalism. But they talk about they don't want illegal immigrants, but they're the ones shipping them in here. How do you think these people get here? How do you think they get from Mexico to Minnesota in 2 days? Unless somebody's shipping them in. These ain't the ones that's dying in these trucks of suffocation. They're coming here on buses. They're coming here in planes. They're coming here to fill up these jobs that the people that don't want to work for $7 an hour ain't gonna work.
They're not getting $7. Yeah, they dang sure ain't getting $7 an hour.
Yeah, so they ain't gonna get that. So they're feeling this. How do you think we go from slavery? You think that slavery has ended? They're still trying to figure out a way to get free labor. I don't care what, if you got a manufacturer and if you're selling some products, you're going to try to figure out the least amount of expense that you could have in order to make the most amount of profit. That's all that it's about. Profit,
that balance sheet, right?
And expenses. You got to have in order to make a better profit, you got to have less expenses. And then, this stimulus thing, this whole stimulus thing is a joke, because the only thing people are looking at with their eyes is the stimulus checks. That's all you hear about is them stimulus checks. But there's so much more. That's only, a fraction of this bill, and Biden, he's not as bright as he thinks he is, because you got this stimulus bill to help these small businesses get back open. Okay, so the stimulus bill includes money to help businesses reopen, but it also includes a minimum wage of $15 an hour for these small businesses. So how can these businesses start over after being closed for almost a year? And then they have to pay their employees twice as much as what they paid them before they close. So it's like they're fighting against each other with the same bill. It doesn't make sense. And so they're holding everything up on these little things that's in this bill that people don't even paying attention to, but it's in there. So what politicians do is they stack stuff on top of each other, so much stuff in there that you ain't paying attention to it when you're voting for it. So there's a lot of stuff that's holding stuff up people don't even know about. So Biden wants a $15 an hour minimum wage. That's fine. Well, why now? Why do you start it off? How about getting the business open first? How about getting the people employed first? How about getting them back to their job that they want to get back to? These people ain't crying to get back to a job paying twice as much as what they was making before. They just want to get back to making the money they was making before the shutdown. First, then once they get back in there, now let's negotiate. See, that's the thing that's missing in this society. It's called negotiation. Let's negotiate. People don't try to negotiate their wages. They just figure they get hired, and whatever they tell them they got to make, that's what they got to make. But there's a thing called negotiation. Let's negotiate. Just because he's making $5 an hour don't mean I can. You negotiate with your skills. He might be making that, but I can do this. Can he do that? No, then you need to pay me this amount for my skills. It's called negotiation. It's called arbitration. It's called going and talking to your employer to try to negotiate with what you want. But you can't negotiate for everybody. See, that's the thing. You want everybody to make the same amount of money in a capitalist society. That don't make sense to me. It doesn't match. Capitalism doesn't mean everybody makes it. That's socialism. That's a socialist society. We need to have either socialism or capitalism. You can't have both. Capitalism is here. It ain't going nowhere. So what you need to do is teach people how to live in a capitalist society. Teach people how to negotiate, because capitalism is all about negotiation. Like President Trump used to say, the art of the deal. Let's make a deal. I can do this for you. But see, people want to go in and have a job just because they walked in the door and think, hey, I'm here. Well, what can you do? What do you want me to do?
I will say this, though, is that because for school and whatnot, to create a business, you need to have wages that start with a living wage. So you're not supposed to set your budget and your prices based off of a wage that is below living expenses. So when you talk about the inflation rate and what a living wage is compared to the minimum poverty, the $15 an hour is where that number comes from, even though technically it really ain't letting nobody live anything. So and that's why it goes back to what I said before. It's not based off of this country, and in general, life isn't based off of everybody becoming a doctor and a lawyer, right? Those jobs won't exist for everybody. That's not an opportunity. So there needs to be minimum wage people for the economy to survive. But for those people to really survive, there needs to be a living wage amounts that people can actually live without having to worry about working 2 and 3 jobs. So a business should not be able to start, and that shouldn't be factored into their wage. I mean, $15 should already be factored into their wages before even creating the job and the business plan and how they're going to make a profit based off of A, B, and C. So I understand what you're saying, and that makes sense. But also for a smart business owner themselves, they need to make sure that they're providing their employees a wage that is actual livable for their areas and for their demographic, because $7.25 is not a livable wage for an adult anywhere. They're basing it as if minimum wage is only based for teens that are going up in the ladder. Well, unfortunately, the economy and the capitalism isn't based off of just when you're a teenager, you get minimum wage, and then automatically when you're adult now, they're paying you more. That's just not how it works. So that's where the minimum wage aspect comes in. And when you're creating a business, you should never create a business to sustain having their employees make $7.25.
But that's another thing I have with this living wage is, if you're a 10th grader, you got a child in the 10th grade, and you're trying to tell him, you need to, go to school, get your degree, and then go on to get your college education or do whatever you want that child to do. And he's saying, bump that. I can go get a job right now at McDonald's, making the same amount of money that you're making. And I can get my own place, and I can get my own job, and I can get my own house, I can get my own apartment because I'm making a living wage. So then what's going to happen to the the high school graduation rate? It will drop because there's no need for them to go to school because they can make the same amount of money their parents are making.
That's been proved false. Like basically,
it's never happened before. So how can it be proved?
Because the minimum wage was set to be based off of having a living wage. Like that's what they set the base off as $7.25.
No, the minimum wage was based off of the least amount of money that the employer could pay somebody. It had nothing to do with the living wage. It was never a living wage.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Like the actual amount of money was supposed to be based off of the living wage. It wasn't based off of just me giving you as minimum money. And that's why they're trying to increase it, because they're so far behind. That's why they even started out a minimum wage. And then that factor as in those, if you're driven, you're driven. So there's going to be people, once again, that are going to settle for the minimum wage. That's cool. But the majority of the people, once we keep feeding them the American dream and whatnot, they're going to try to make sure that they're able to go further than just high school. And a lot of people don't have aspirations to go past high school, which is fine because technically the world needs them. So we shouldn't base it off of an individual that has no drive. We should base it off of the people that are actually working. There are a lot of people out there with degrees that can't find a job because everything is a minimum wage. So the minimum wage isn't based off of the 10th grader that just doesn't want to do anything. It's based off of the adults that are trying to actually live and actually be something. Unfortunately, that they're just not, there's no jobs for everybody. Like there's just not enough.
That's because they eliminated the middle class. We have no more middle class. There used to be a middle class where you could go to for, if you didn't graduate and go to college, it's all right. You can get a job making enough money for you to have a good living. That was called middle class. That don't exist anymore.
What'd you say?
Say this stuff. The $15 minimum wage, I'm gonna give y'all an example. I drove buses, right? So bus driver, no kids, all old people, 60 plus. I was the youngest person there. Our starting wage was $13 an hour. Like that's what we were making. So $13 an hour to drive a bus. Like we're not at a McDonald's, we're not at Wendy's. So the $15 minimum wage is designed really to help a lot of people now, we talk about small businesses.
And that's what I'm saying.
18%, the definition of a small business, it changes depends on the industry that you're in, right? So a retail store, a small business is 500 or less employees, right? That's the small business. If you have 500 or less employees, only 18% of Americans actually work a job where there are 20 or fewer employees. And 48% of Americans work in small businesses in different fields. So you can work for a coal mining company where you got 1,500 employees, and that's still considered a small business. So $15 an hour at a coal mining company where you got 1,000 employees, you know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of times when people say the minimum wage, they automatically think of the mom and pop shops that are locally owned, but that really only makes up 18% of the workforce in America, right? So the majority of the people, when it comes to the $15 minimum wage, are people that work at jobs at factories, because factories only start at $10, $11 an hour. The ones building pallets, building, Amazon don't pay more than $15 an hour. They might now, but Amazon start at $12 an hour. You driving UPS trucks, they start at $12 an hour. So majority of the jobs that you really thinking that most people do every day are under $15 an hour. Most people wage under $15 an hour.
And let's be clear, $15 an hour is not making anybody a baller. It's not making, and it's really not. It's really not a livable wage when you think about where you're living. Because once again, if you make $15 an hour, living where I live, the rent here, for example,
let's think about
rent, the minimum rent. Once again, that's what I'm just trying to make sure we're clear. The minimum rent for people out here for 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 500 square feet, I'll say, is anywhere from $1,200 to $1,300. If you can't find a place here for $800, there are no $900 apartments. There are no that isn't even that's not an option. If you find an $800 a month apartment here, you've been there for at least 10 years. You've been there for 6-7 years. You can't go find a place right now without roaches and a bullet hole in the wall for $1,000 right now. So for that minimum, for literally the living wage is literally being able to sit in an empty apartment and drink the water and eat ramen. And that's not living, that's existing. And there's a difference. And once again, we are not set up for if everybody went to college and everybody had a degree, there would still need to be a janitor. There would still need to people, working the cash register. So no matter how much education these people get, if everybody went to college, we would still need minimum wage jobs. That just is what it is.
But even if everybody got the living wage, let's say everybody was changed, now everybody's making $15 an hour. How long do you think that would last before that is not enough money again?
It's not enough money now.
The loaf of bread will go up. Gas will go up. Housing would go up. Yes, it's called capitalist society. That's what capitalism does.
This is why I just wanted to make sure we're clear, because research has been done and I was looking at it the other day. The minimum wage increasing $15 would not increase inflation because that is already under inflation rates. That does not increase the wages. Now, the only reason why somebody would do that is if they literally just want to make more profit, but that does not necessarily mean
that's what capitalism is, profit.
But that's regardless with any job. That's any place. That's any place regardless. But
if you have a shop, a place where you're paying your employees $7 an hour, now you got to pay them $15 an hour. How are you going to pay that $15 an hour? You're going to raise the prices on everything you're selling to make up for that extra amount of money. Or you're going to lay off half your staff.
I don't have the data in front of me, but that's already been disproven. I will show
the data next. That's business.
Right.
That's
I understand.
Capitalism. That's called expenses. Less profit equals income minus expenses. If your expenses go up, the only way you can make a profit is you have to make more income or you have to cut your expenses. That's business. Okay. That's just the way business works. And so they can have all the projections they want, but that's going to happen. Either they're going to lay off more people, either they're going to have, either way, you're going to have more people unemployed with the minimum wage of $15 an hour, or you're going to have to pay more for your products. That's the only way it's going to happen.
Okay,
it's a tactic that Republicans are using that to scare people to say we
that's
don't
not
need
scare,
to raise.
That's business.
I'm just trying to let you know, but I'll bring the data next time.
There's no data. It's business. If you have a business that's making $1,000 a month profit and you're paying $500 for your expenses, now all of a sudden your expenses are $700.
But we're talking about the national increase of products opposed to an individual increase of products. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so we can say get national. You get national by raising individuals.
Right.
That's how you become national.
So we can say that, for example, the national. So we can't say that certain products would increase because it's already there. So the majority of a lot of the products that we get and the things that we get won't be increased. So once again, I don't have the data in front of me, but it has been shown that that does not equate to inflation in prices because the inflation rate is already higher than that $15 minimum wage. So the prices aren't based off of the $7.25 minimum wage. Prices are not based off of that wage. It's based off of other factors, which I don't have in front of me once again. But I was just letting you know that that's the majority of a budget.
Businesses. Because the minimum wage is only going to affect small businesses,
and that's why he just stated that the minimum, the small businesses is only a small
you're breaking
percentage.
Up. We can't hear what you're saying.
The small percentage. So that's why Aaron brought up the fact of the percentage of small businesses in America is inflated in the actual conversation. So the amount of small businesses that are actual small businesses are very minimum compared to what the masses are doing. I've never worked for a small business. You've never worked for a small business. In that aspect of a mom and pop shop where you only are making, where there's one person named Habib, that's reality. There's not that many small businesses compared to, I mean, you work for the cell phone center and I get that aspect, but but that's very little comparatively to how many businesses there are. Like you said, there's only 18% of the country that works in small businesses. And out of that 18%, how many have lower than 20? I mean, how many people have, I mean, they're 18% of the people, 18% of the country has less than 20 employees, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you take the others, 82% of the companies, they're fine.
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me now? All right. I don't know. So I took the headphones out and my phone started tripping. So this is my perspective on the whole situation. Like, was Dad saying absolutely fact? It will. But with the majority, like we say, the majority of real small businesses. So we're talking, I was working at the cell phone shop. So it's me, Brian, Hungy, Trisha, Elizabeth. It's 5 employees running the shop, right? He didn't hire us based on what he had to pay us. He hired us based on what he needed. And with the minimum wage increasing, I honestly don't know if, you know what I'm saying? If you need a certain amount of people and you're a small business, you only have 20 people, you're only hiring for the positions you need. So if you open from 7 to 11, you got a 7 to 3 shift and 3 to 11 shift. You're only going to hire the amount of people that you need per 7 to 3, per 3 to 11. You're not going to necessarily. So when the minimum wage comes up, you're still going to need the same amount of people from 7 to 3 and 3 to 11. So I don't know. It sounds like you would cut back, when paying double the people. I gotta fire a couple people. But in all reality, if you already only hiring 6 or 7 people, you kind of probably already need all 6 or 7 of them people to work in the shop anyway. You know what I'm saying? So majority of the jobs that are small businesses like Cub Food. So let's say Cub Foods on Phelan or Cub Foods in Oakdale hires 120 people. Well, technically, if that's an independent Cub Foods, that's a small business. But they got 120 people. So now you got to pay all 120 people $15 an hour. I can see them dropping from 120 to 100. You know what I'm saying? So I can see it.
They ain't hiring no 100 people in Cup Foods.
But you know,
they might have 25 people.
But you know what I'm saying? Like if you had a business where you would normally hire 120 and then the minimum wage goes up, I could see you dropping 20 jobs just to keep your profits going. So I can see both aspects of it. But like we said, $15 an hour, honestly, is only $1,200 every 2 weeks if you work 40 hours a week every week. And then they take taxes out of that. You might be down to $1,100. Like, Are You Serious said, if you got a 1-bedroom apartment, even in St. Paul, you don't even have to go to California. 1-bedroom apartments in St. Paul, $800. So if you're making $1,100 and your rent is $800, I hope you don't have no electricity bill. I hope you don't have to pay no groceries. I hope you don't have, you know what I'm saying?
Because and that's only assuming that you're only taking care of yourself.
Right. I hope you don't have no kids. I hope you don't have no car insurance, no car note. I hope you don't have a date. Like,
it's just not.
If it wasn't for 2 weeks, I don't know what I'd do.
It's not moral. It's not ethical to pay someone $7.25 as an adult and expect them to. It's just not. Like, regardless of the data, regardless of how much we're talking about businesses this and cost of that, it's unethical. It's not fair. It's not right. People shouldn't be working to live. We should be living and then adding some work into it. Like America has it all wrong. And all these other countries, they take months off and weeks off all the time. They got 100 and something days of vacation time. You got countries where people they don't have PTO slots. It's just, when are you leaving? Like, we shouldn't base our lives based off of working a job. Like, we literally work 5 days out of the week to get 2 days off. That doesn't sound crazy to anybody else. Like, that doesn't sound wild to anybody else, that 8 hours of our active day is based off of making an income to live off of something like that. It doesn't make any sense, but yet we're so trained to think that that's how it's supposed to be. It doesn't have to be this way. But when you start talking like that, then people start going and, oh, you're a communist, oh, you're a socialist, you just don't want to be lazy, you don't want to work hard. Who wants to work for what? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, why are we doing all this? So you can, like, that's not living. That's not what life was made for. That's not what that's not what life was created for.
You don't get to enjoy your time. Like, I mean, think about it. Some people work 18 hours a day, 5 days a week. You got 2 days off. Like, that's a lot.
And they proud of that. Like, you're supposed to be proud of that.
I'm working 12-hour shifts. Listen, I go to work at 6 in the morning. You get home at 8 at night. What is your day?
To be proud of.
What is your day? You just working, you get a check, you don't even get to spend it. You buying food, that's all you eat, you eating your check. So I understand.
To me, that's nothing to be proud of.
All right, let's get into this random fact of the day, and then we get in dad jokes and we get up out of here, man. It's DJ Double OG. We got Are You Serious? We got Dad in the building. Are you serious? Do you have a random fact to take to work this week?
You guys can pick. It can be just a random weird fact, or it can be some Black History random fact. So you guys can choose.
Let's hear some Black History. It's Black History Month.
Okay, so the last documented slave was in 1962.
What?
Yeah, there was this lady, the last slave. There was slavery. So there was slavery in the 1960s in different states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Florida. They just didn't tell these people that they were actually free. So if you go into deep South and rural areas where they don't have the things that we have today, everywhere is modernized in America, especially back in the 60s. So if you're in in a deep South area in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas, and Florida, they had people that were still slaves, being raped, working fields, doing all this stuff until the 60s. And there was this lady called May Louise Walls-Miller. You can look her up. And she said she didn't get her freedom until 1962. So it was her and her family. And she talked about, like, her and her mother were constantly raped. Her father tried to run away to get freedom and to come back to get them some help. He got captured and then beaten in front of them. All the slave tactics that were the same slavery that there was all the way until 1962, until the daughter ran away and then came back and they found some help and they were able to come back and free the family. But that was just the last documented case, but that wasn't the last case of people that were actually slaves. So if you look at that movie Annabella, with what's the singer's name? Monet or something?
Janelle
Monáe. If you look at that movie, it's basically about people getting kidnapped, and then they go to this rural place in the South where they practice slavery. So I mean, it's like that's a fun fact, if you want to call it fun. But it's a Black history fact that they were literally slaves in the 1960s that were still being whipped, raped, abused, worked, whatever you want to call it. And that's just the ones that we know of. That's the one that's they're documented.
That's sad. That's sad, man. That's sad.
Well, when you look at it, it's entirely possible because back then they didn't have television and they didn't have, if you own this property, you got 500 acres of property that you own, and these people never get off that property. You control everything that they hear, see, smell, touch, and taste. So if you can keep outsiders out from getting in, you can do whatever you want to them people.
Yeah. So when people talk about slavery ended hundreds of years ago, 1960s is when there was the last couple slaves. It was in the 60s that we know of. There could literally be people being slaves right now. We wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm not in the mood to laugh. All right, Dad. You got a dad joke for us to end the show?
There was this pastor preaching a sermon. He was known for having a long sermon. So he was preaching, and he noticed a man get up in the middle of his sermon and leave, right in the middle of his message. And then he came back a little bit later, just before the sermon ended. And so the pastor walked up to him and said, what happened? Where'd you go during the service? And he said, oh, I went to get a haircut. And the pastor said, but why didn't you do that before you came to the service? The man said, well, I didn't need a haircut before I came to the service. That's how long the service was.
In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name.
All right, man. This is Real Family Therapy Podcast, episode 7. DJ Double OG. I'm at the radio station. That's why I got the mask on. We got Are You Serious? We got Dad in the building, man. I appreciate y'all doing this show again today. Any last words before we get up out of here?
Make sure y'all shop Black, fear God, essentials, support us. This is a luxury brand. This is top shelf. And they from Sacramento, so shout out to Emmanuel's. But yeah.
Is that silk hoodie? Was that silk? Is that silk?
Nah, it's just high quality.
All right, Dad, any last word?
No, but how come, when you going to get Bernita on the show?
I was thinking that. I want Mom and Bernita on the show, honestly. I want the whole family on the show. So I don't know, man. Whenever y'all ready, I guess it's up to y'all. We can get us all. I think it'll be great. I'm glad you said that, Dad.
Yeah, she's family.
All right, episode 8. Stay tuned. We're going to have Big Sis in the building.
But I think she works in it around this time, though, so I don't know.
It's all right. I'm gonna talk to her and figure out what time we get together and do it. All right, well, I'm out of here. I'm finna get back to the crib, clean up for the kids come home. Appreciate y'all doing this episode, man. I'm gonna chop it up and I'm gonna have it up ready on Thursday. It's gonna take me 40 hours, so Thursday, look for the drop.
Will do.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, bye.